Perhaps you are wondering, why did this video appear to you today, at this very moment in your life? The mind may call it coincidence, but deeper consciousness recognizes another logic. It is not coincidence, it is convergence. When the inner state meets compatible information, the encounter ceases to be random and becomes inevitable. Bruce Lipton explains that our beliefs function like biological software. They modulate the body's chemistry, filter perceptions, and guide choices. When this internal program shifts, new frequencies are emitted, and life begins to present information, people, and opportunities that resonate with this renewed field. This is where the difference between clock time and quantum time emerges. The first is linear, measured in hours and days. The second is vibrational. Events do not arrive when we want them to, but when there is energetic compatibility. A synchronicity, therefore, is less of a surprise and more of a biofeedback of alignment between inner state and external possibilities. Gregg Braden describes this as the action of an intelligent field, an invisible fabric that connects everything and organizes patterns. This field does not hand out rewards or punishments. It merely mirrors the coherence we sustain. When mind, emotion, and body enter harmony, reality reorganizes itself to reflect that state. The promise of this video is precisely that, to transform casual content consumption into sacred reception. Not watching out of curiosity, but learning to observe, integrate, and embody the signs that arrive. Because when you understand what is being reflected, each synchronicity stops being a riddle and becomes a bridge to the leap already gestating. We are used to thinking of time as a straight line. First we plant, then we harvest. First we work, then we achieve. That linear model works in many areas of practical life, but it is insufficient to explain the movement of synchronicities. Quantum time follows another logic, not accumulation, but the collapse of possibilities. In the quantum field, events are not organized by the rigid sequence of the clock, but by vibrational compatibility. That is why certain content, encounters, or signs arise at such precise moments. They didn't arrive because they were waiting for the right hour, but because the observer, you, entered a compatible state to perceive and receive them. The encounter with this video is an example of that. It is not merely the result of an algorithm or digital chance. It reflects the point at which your attention, emotion, and intention converge to select among infinite options precisely this information. It is the observer effect in action, the silent choice of your inner state shaping what appears outside. The practical criterion, then, is not to control when signs will come, but to observe where your attention rests. At every moment, what you focus on is what you invite into your field. If attention anchors in lack, time seems stagnant. If it rests in trust, time opens into opportunities. Understanding this difference changes everything. Clock time marches inevitably on, but quantum time responds to what you sustain within. Each synchronicity is therefore less an unexpected gift and more evidence of the ongoing dialogue between your inner state and the field of possibilities. All of life is vibration. Each thought generates a wave, each emotion emits a signal, each choice imprints the field around us. Just as one musical instrument resonates when another plays the same note, we too attract experiences that vibrate in tune with what we carry inside. This is the essence of quantum resonance. Perhaps you have already noticed how certain ideas seem to chase you. A book mentioned in conversation, then appearing in a shop window, later cited in a video. That content is not knocking on your door by chance. It returns because your inner frequency is asking for it. The repetition is the field responding, confirming your compatibility with a possibility. The risk lies in mistaking this dance for mere curiosity or fantasy. It is not enough to collect signs like souvenirs without purpose. True resonance does not happen on the surface of the mind, but in the body. It is the butterflies in the stomach, the heart that races, the breath that expands for no apparent reason. The body recognizes before reason comprehends. This is why a gesture of wisdom is to transform enchantment into listening. When something calls your attention, instead of chasing the next sign, pause and ask, what within me recognizes this as usable truth? This question shifts the focus from pursuit to integration, from noise to meaning. To recognize quantum resonance is to perceive that life neither tests nor deceives us. It only returns what we emit. And when we learn to listen with the body and to nurture the inner state we desire, signs stop being mysterious messages and become clear responses to what we are already choosing to live. Before a significant change manifests, there are signs that act as pre-announcements. They are like cracks in the earth before the spring bursts forth. Life shows us that something is about to emerge through three recurring marks: the magnetism of information, the recognition of patterns, and the embodied knowing. The first signature is the magnetism of information. Suddenly, certain content seems to chase you. A book falls off a shelf, someone brings up exactly the subject you were researching, a video shows up at the perfect moment. It isn't life trying to convince you of something distant, but the field reflecting what your inner world is already emitting. The second is the recognition of patterns. You start to notice the same message repeating in different forms. A phrase on the radio, a dream, a casual conversation. It is as if reality were sketching the outlines of an image still invisible, preparing your mind to see a path that already exists in potential. The third signature is the embodied knowing. It is the serene conviction that arises before any evidence. You simply know, even if you can't explain how. This certainty does not come from logic, but from an inner alignment of emotion, body, and consciousness. It is as if the future had already left its shadow inside you. Recognizing these three signatures is learning to distinguish noise from melody. Instead of treating each coincidence as a fixed destiny, you begin to observe which signs carry density, coherence, and meaning for your moment. And by recording them, perhaps in a journal or in simple notes, you strengthen the memory of this intimate dialogue with the field, making it clearer and clearer. The observer is not merely someone who watches from the outside. In the view of quantum physics, to observe is to participate. The act of perceiving alters the behavior of reality, as if attention were the secret ingredient that defines which of the infinite possibilities becomes concrete. The gaze does not describe, the gaze creates. But not every gaze is the same. There are looks burdened with fear, mistrust, or urgency, which end up strengthening exactly what one wishes to avoid. When you focus on what is lacking, consciousness chooses to collapse scenarios that confirm that absence. The field, like a mirror, does not judge. It simply reflects what you emit. This is why the quality of attention matters just as much as the act of observing. When it is joined with an elevated emotion, gratitude, serene joy, love, the signal becomes clear. It is at that moment that reality begins to respond with a precision that may seem improbable, but is in truth nothing more than vibrational coherence. A simple practice can help cultivate this posture. When you notice a sign, resist the impulse to interpret or control. Close your eyes, breathe deeply for 60 to 90 seconds, feel the emotion it awakened, and allow that sensation to spread through your body. This ritual of pause transforms the fleeting wow into an act of conscious creation. To be an observer is then to assume a sacred posture before life. It is to understand that attention is not a reflection, but a choice that shapes. Each time you direct it with presence and gratitude, a new line of possibilities opens before you, waiting only to be crossed. Inside us there is a symphony. The mind thinks, the heart feels, the body acts. When each follows a different melody, the result is dissonant. We think abundance, but feel fear. We speak of trust, but the body contracts. The field, sensitive to these frequencies, receives a divided, unstable signal and responds with equally confusing scenarios. Bruce Lipton shows that beliefs are not loose ideas. They shape the very chemistry circulating in our cells. If the mind insists on a positive affirmation, but the body remains trapped in stress hormones, the message transmitted is contradictory. It is not the phrase that creates, but the coherence between thought, emotion, and physiology. Joe Dispenza complements this view by showing that when elevated emotion and clear intention meet, neurons fire in new patterns, opening fresh pathways in the brain. It is as if every cell began to play the same note at the same time, creating a harmonic field that the universe cannot help but reflect. The practice of coherence can begin simply. Breathe in a steady rhythm, feel a genuine emotion of gratitude or love, align your body posture with that state, and from there choose a concrete gesture that represents this identity. The secret is not in doing much, but in doing it wholly, without inner noise. When we reach this harmony, the signal we emit is clean and direct, like a crystalline sound echoing through space. There is no longer contradiction between what we think, feel, and do, and it is in this vibrational clarity that manifestation becomes inevitable. Life responds in the same note we sustain. After a period when synchronicities seem to multiply, an emptiness may arise. The clock no longer shows repeating numbers, the encounters don't happen, and silence sets in. It is at this point that many lose heart, believing they have strayed from the path or that the universe has stopped listening. But silence is not rejection, it is preparation. Neuroscience shows that when our predictions don't come true, the brain enters a pause space, reevaluating its internal maps. This suspension can feel uncomfortable because the mind craves certainty, yet this interval is a fine adjustment, as if the nervous system were recalibrating its antennas to capture subtler frequencies. Spiritually, silence can be seen as the night before dawn. Energy condenses, the field reorganizes, and for a moment, nothing seems to happen. But just as a seed needs darkness to germinate, your manifestation may be taking root invisibly while you trust the process. In these moments, it is essential to cultivate presence. Instead of frantically seeking new signs, practice listening to the emptiness. Breathe slowly, allow the body to settle, and use a simple anchor statement. I sustain the frequency even without external reinforcement. This reminder helps you maintain coherence even when the reflection has not yet appeared. Quantum silence, then, reveals itself not as absence, but as the fertile space where the new is forming. Learning to rest in this interval is one of the greatest signs of spiritual maturity. For those who trust the unseen, do not need guarantees. They recognize that life is already moving in their favor, even if the eyes cannot perceive it right away. When resonance shifts within, life begins to organize differently. It is not something that happens only in the invisible field. There are clear inner indicators that you are already vibrating on a new frequency. Recognizing these indicators is like following the hands of a different clock. Not that of chronological time, but that of expanding consciousness. The first indicator is the fluidity of reality. Situations that once seemed impossible start to feel plausible. Doors that were closed crack open. The second is the acceleration of synchronicities. Connections, encounters, and information arrive with almost surgical precision, as if every detail were choreographed. The third sign is amplified intuition. Ideas arise before you ask. Perceptions become sharper. Decisions that once required effort now feel obvious. The fourth indicator is emotional coherence. Fewer inner conflicts, more stability, and clarity in the way you feel, think, and act. The fifth is effortless action. Instead of fighting against life, you notice that the right gestures present themselves naturally. An email sent at the right time, a word spoken with presence, a choice that seems to make itself. There is no pressure, only lightness, as if the path reveals itself step by step. Recognizing this cascade in real time is essential. It is not the product of chance, but the consequence of what you sustain within. When these 5 signs become part of your daily life, you no longer need external proof. Life itself becomes testimony to the alignment pulsing inside you. At the heart of manifestation lies an often uncomfortable truth. No one outside of you determines the quality of the signal you emit. Not others, not destiny, not chance. It is your inner state that acts as the main variable of the experiment. This is the essence of quantum responsibility, to assume that you are the center that organizes the experience you perceive. Assuming this responsibility does not mean blame, but capacity for adjustment. Blame paralyzes, adds weight, and keeps the body in contraction. Responsibility, on the other hand, opens the door to choice. If the inner state creates the experience, then there is always the possibility to recalibrate, refine, and realign. In practice, this begins with hygiene of the field. What you consume as information feeds your inner circuits. Lack of rest, excess of rapid stimuli, overload of comparisons and judgments, all of this sabotages coherence. Taking care of sleep quality, reducing mental noise, and setting clear boundaries is more than self-care, it is vibrational engineering. Each daily micro-commitment acts as recalibration. 1 minute of conscious breathing, a pause to feel genuine gratitude, a gesture of organization in your surroundings. Small adjustments like these clear interference and keep the signal stable, preparing the field to reflect with clarity. To be the author of the experiment is to live as a creator, not a reactor. It is to remember that life does not happen against you, but through you. And when you assume this responsibility with lightness and presence, you discover that reality stops being a sequence of coincidences and becomes a mirror of your own coherence. For a long time, many of us walked as collectors of signs, waiting for something external to confirm our direction. That outlook creates dependency and keeps us as eternal seekers. But there is a profound shift. Instead of chasing breadcrumbs, we can become the bakery itself, the source from which the aroma naturally spreads. To be an emitter is to embody identity before proof. It is to begin the day not in search of clues, but by radiating a state that already tells the field. This is who I am. When that vibration is sustained, environments begin to respond predictably. Conversations align, encounters appear, doors open. Not because you begged, but because you already became the frequency that calls them in. The practice of this shift can begin with the morning routine, what Gregg Braden calls the alignment moment. Upright posture, conscious breathing, and an identity phrase spoken with presence, followed by a minimal 2-minute action, an email, a message, a simple organization. This small ritual is not symbolic. It is programmatic. It informs both body and field. I am already emitting. The metric of this transformation is not the number of signs perceived, but the quality of reality's response to your state. When you no longer feel adrift and notice that circumstances begin to reorganize around your presence, it is because you have stopped being a seeker and have become an emitter. At that point, synchronicity loses its status as rarity and becomes the backdrop of your life. Signs stop being isolated clues and become the natural landscape of someone who not only observes the field, but nourishes it with their own coherence. Every synchronicity carries an invitation, but that invitation is lost if it stays only in the mind as a curious memory. For the sign to become a living part of the path, it must be integrated into the body. And this can happen in as little as 90 seconds of full presence. The first step is to interrupt the rush. Take a deep breath, lengthening the inhale and releasing the exhale even more slowly. This simple rhythm already changes internal chemistry, calms the nervous system, and creates space for perception to become sharper. It is like opening the window to let fresh air in. From that silence, the opportunity to feel arises. Not to invent, not to force, but to allow a true emotion to surface. Perhaps gratitude for something small, the memory of a moment of peace, or even the serene joy of simply being alive right now. When that emotion pulses, the body recognizes and records the message that wholeness is already available. Then, effortlessly, you can allow an image to emerge. Not a distant fantasy, but the embodied sensation of a possible future. It is like mentally walking down a road that already exists, adjusting the body to reflect that presence. Shoulders lifting, gaze expanding, breath stabilizing. In that instant, the brain and heart record together the already is. To keep the experience from staying only in the subtle plane, it is essential to ground it in action. A minimal gesture, almost symbolic, yet concrete, organizing an object, sending a message, writing a phrase. This small movement seals the frequency in the material world. And thus, in just a minute and a half, the sign stops being a fleeting echo and becomes a living seed of reality. When you change the belief that sustains your life, everything reorganizes. Lipton calls beliefs true biological software, invisible codes that determine how your cells behave, how your chemistry responds, and even which opportunities you notice. Altering this program is like changing the frequency of a transmitter. Suddenly, reality begins to play another song, another landscape, another flow. Neville Goddard said the secret was to live in the end. That is, not to wait for the external sign to validate, but to adopt right now the identity of what you already wish to be. When you embody that state, there is nothing left to seek. The field doesn't need to prove anything. It simply reflects the serene conviction you sustain in every breath. At that point, synchronicities stop being enigmas. They are not trophies to display, nor tests to pass. They become natural side effects of inner alignment. Each repeated number, each unlikely encounter, each meaningful coincidence is simply the echo of a reality already pulsing within you, waiting for your confirmation. The final invitation is simple and practical. Remember that signs are invitations, not instructions. That silence is not absence, but threshold. That coherence is not luxury, but mechanics. Choose a word that represents your identity today. It may be trust, wholeness, clarity. And translate that word into a minimal gesture, something concrete that gives body to your frequency. And then pause, align your breath, straighten your posture, and declare from the inside out, I am ready to receive my breakthrough. Not as a slogan, but as embodied truth. In that moment, you stop chasing the future and become the very sign the field was waiting for.